Hello once again, YouTube. Today I wanted to show you guys my Daniel Defense DDM4V9. This is kind of my go-to setup here. Let me go over the features real quick and kind of how I have it set up, and then if you want to stick around towards the end of the video, I'll give you the story about how I got it and why I decided to go with what I did. Alright, so to begin with, we'll start I guess we'll start from the back. So on the back, I've got the Magpul STR buttstock. I used to have a CTR on a different rifle, and this is basically the same profile design, but it's got a wider cheek wield, which I kind of liked. I also like the fact that these cheek wheels are tubes for storage, so you can put in batteries. I do have batteries in both of them. You can fit, if I can get this off, here we go. So back here you can fit two CR123 batteries in there on either side, so that gives me four extra batteries here, which we'll go over later. This has a quick disconnect mount right here on this side, and it is reversible, so you can move it from this side to the opposite side, or you can do what I did and they sell a separate piece. I forget what it's called, but there's a separate piece that you can add in that's made specifically for this, which gives you the QD on both sides. So this just goes in and screws in on that side, and now I've got a QD point on either side, however you want to run it. So it kind of makes it a little more ambidextrous that way. Daniel Defense does include the QD mount here on the end plate, so if you want to run single point, you can. I prefer 2-point myself, but I like having the option there just in case, you know, something might happen to the stock and we might have to rely on this as well. So it's there. Options are always good. The grip is the Daniel Defense grip, which has the integrated trigger guard built into it. I was going to swap it out, but once I got in and tried it, it's kind of got this rubberized texture to it. It's not bad. I don't mind it at all, so I just left it on there. And it does have this little compartment, I guess you could call it a compartment, but it's got this cap, and then I keep spare batteries from my optic wrapped up in here, so that gives me backup batteries for all my electronics that I'm running. Obviously it's chambered 5.56. Back here on this side, I swapped the charging handle for the Raptor charging handle. And I bought this gun about, gosh, it's probably been about 10 years now, and it doesn't get out the safe as much as I'd like it to. But to give you an idea of how long I've been running this Raptor charging handle, this was I still have the packaging. This is back before they started being branded as the Radian Raptor, right? This was just straight up Rainier Arms, the Raptor charging handle. So you still get them, you can still buy them from Rainier Arms. This is the original, just the mil-spec charging handle that came with the rifle. And yeah, so I've been having this for a while. That's the old packaging. Rainier Arms Raptor charging handle. Nowadays it's called the Radian Raptor. But anyway, I do like this charging handle. There's the Rainier Arms logo on it. So that's kind of my charging handle of choice. You'll also notice my backup iron sight. So this is a flip up and it locks into place. It's not going to really go anywhere. This button here will release the lock and allow you to float it back down. Nice low profile. These are made by Troy. I made a pretty conscious effort when I was putting accessories on this item to go with made in America as much as possible. The one item on here that's not made in the US is the aim point, which I'll get to in a minute. Everything else that's on here is made in the US. So with the backup iron sights, I kind of feel like the Magpul M-Bus was out at that point, and I know a lot of people use them and they're very reliable and good, but I kind of felt like I wanted my backup iron sights to actually be iron sights, if you know what I mean, at least for this rifle. So I went with the Troy. I'm really happy with these. This one has, if we can see it on the video, it's got this, excuse me here, I hope you can see that. So this is a diamond shaped optic. I think they call it a dioptic or something like that, but anyway, rather than just a circle, it's kind of got a diamond shape with these markings on it. I do like that. I kind of find it gives you almost a natural crosshair to look through when you're peeping through it, and then you can flip it for the long range shots if you need to do more long range accurate. But that's kind of the unique feature about that. I have the matching sight on front, which is just a standard M4 style that folds down. So moving forward to the optic, again, I have an aim point. This is the Micro T1, and watching the video, you've probably seen it, the Larry Vickers video with the Daniel Defense torture test. That video definitely confirmed that I wanted a Daniel Defense at that point, but that's the video that sold me on this red dot as well, because that aim point Micro T1 went through everything that the rifle went through and came out, it performed with flying colors. So this was going to be my, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself here, but this was going to be my end of the world one rifle, right? This is the, if there's a end of the world as we know it, doomsday scenario, whatever you want to call it, this was going to be my rifle. I knew it was going to be reliable and that it would survive anything that I would put it through, and that includes the optic. The big selling point on the aim point for me was the battery life. So and as part of that, having a red dot that's going to last literally years before you have to change the battery, and then carrying a couple of spare batteries in the grip, I think I figured out the math, and I had like 8 years worth of battery life on me at all times in the rifle, with the battery life of the optic plus the spare batteries that I had in the grip. So I wouldn't have to worry about the optic. I knew it was going to go through anything I could put it through, it was going to survive. And you know, it's just, that was the way to go for me. So that video definitely sold me on the Aimpoint T1. That's why it's on there. It was kind of a spare no expense for this rifle. Buy once, cry once. Of course, I still have the backup iron sights just in case. You know, I don't think I'll ever have to use them, but they're on there just in case I do. And I do run an absolute co-witness or a perfect co-witness. It's just what I prefer. So going into that, it's sitting on a Fortis mount, as you can see here, and I have it mounted as far forward as I can, and then with the mount leaning forward, it gives me a little extra eye relief there. And it also gives me enough room where I should be able to mount a magnifier if I feel like I do need to reach out long range. Remember, this is an AR-15. It's not a precision long range rifle to begin with. So we're not, you know, I'm not planning on making 300, 400 yard shots with it. I don't feel like I need a high powered scope on it. I know the LPVOs are kind of popular right now, but a red dot's fine for me. In a real world scenario, even if you're out in the woods or in a more urban area, if you're gonna have to use it in an engagement, most of your engagements are probably gonna be within 100 yards. You don't really need a high powered scope for that. You know, maybe you might get out to 150 yards, a red dot will work, throw on a magnifier, and you're really good to go from that point. Set your rifle up for the scenario that you want. It's a tool and you have to use your tools, you know, based on your needs. Anyway, enough preaching about that. Let's move on to the rest of the rifle. Obviously this is the Daniel Defense rail. This is their quad rail. And if you're wondering what makes the V9 different from the V7, because I know the V7 is the most popular rifle out right now that Daniel Defense makes. Everybody's getting the V7. The only difference between the V7 and the V9 is the rail. That's it. That's literally the only difference. The V7 has a M-LOK rail. The V9 has a quad rail, quad Picatinny rail. That's it. Other than that, they're identical guns. They're exactly the same. They also had a V11 at one point. I don't think they offer it anymore, but the V11 was the exact same gun with the key mod rail. So key mod's kind of gone the way of Betamax, but personally I kind of like the quad rail. It's a little bit heavier, a little bit rougher on the hands. That's why I've got these rail covers on it. But I just like the quad rails. You know, it's just something that that I've always liked. So this is their quad rail. It's got a QD point here and here on both sides that I like to use. It does also have a QD point up here in the front. You can see, you might be able to see it here underneath the rail cover. So obviously I've got it covered. Personally, on both sides, I don't care for the ones all the way up here. I find that the strap gets in my way a little bit, so I prefer the strap to be connected back here. That way it's kind of out the way, it's a little closer to the body. That's all personal preference, you know, however you want to do it. I just like to run it from here. So on the top, I've got Magpul ladder rail covers, top and a couple on the bottom, just, you know, to help with that the grip there a little bit, so it's not quite so sharp digging into your hands. And then across the sides, I've got the Magpul rail covers. These are the, I think, the XTM rail covers. Again, just it makes a good profile here, particularly with the Daniel. It's almost like they were made for the Daniel Defense rail, because the Daniel Defense quad rail is has a little more narrow profile than some of the other quad rails, which tend to be a little thicker and fatter right here on the sides. And so with the Daniel Defense profile and throwing these rail covers on, it's like they were made for each other, because it just gives you really nice, good profile to get your hand around it right there. So it's just a great match. And I've got them mixed up here with the gray and the black. On the bottom, the first thing I did when I got this rifle was I took off that vertical foregrip. I can't stand vertical foregrips. I just don't like them. If you like to use them, more power to you. I don't. So I put on the XTM hand stop, which again is by Magpul. It's a much lower profile, less chance of snagging on anything, and you can still use it as a brace if you're, you know, if you've got a ledge or something that you want to rest it up against. It still works great for that. So it's just a good fit for my hand. That's kind of how I run it here, and just wrap my hand around. And then you'll see for the light situation. So obviously you can see what I went with. Most people will do something like this and throw, you know, a big honking light on the side right here, and then they'll run the pressure pad. I don't particularly care for that as much. The bigger lights, I know some of those lights, like the scout lights, they don't weigh that much, so they don't add a whole lot of weight, but hanging off the side like that, I feel like it could potentially, depending on how you mount it, could potentially be a snag issue. I really don't like the pressure plates, because you get the accidental discharge of the light. Happens all the time when people, because that's where you wrap your hand, so people accidentally hit it and then you're giving away your position, which could be a big no-no. Also, when you're doing that, you're adding extra points of failure, potential failure points. So, you know, it's good to have, if you're going to run a pressure pad, it's good to have something that you can click on the light itself in case that pressure pad fails or the wire comes loose or gets cut or anything like that. I just avoided all of that and came up with a different solution, and that's, I run a pistol light. This is the X300U by Surefire, and I like it mounted at the 6 o'clock position. It's tucked in under the rifle, it's out of the way, no real chance to snag on anything. It's fully ambidextrous, so no matter which way, if I have to switch grips, I can still access everything on here the exact same way. The way this light operates is, if you want momentary, you push and let go, and then if you want it to be on completely, you flip it up or down, either way, and that works on both sides. So again, fully ambidextrous controls. It's there no matter which way I'm going. It does the same job as, you know, something like this does. It lights up the room. It lets me see what I need to see. It runs off of two CR123 batteries, which, as we've already gone over, I have extras in my stock. So I've got two sets of batteries I can swap for that. and I've got the extra batteries for the red dot as well. The other advantage that this weapon light gives me is if for whatever reason I need to take it off, it's got this easily quick detach system where I just slip it right off. And now if I really wanted to, or if I've just felt like I needed to, I could take this light and throw it on a Glock or a pistol or whatever, and now I've got use for it here as well. So being able to swap it out between a pistol and a rifle adds some versatility to it. It's a little bit loose, but I mean that really doesn't bother me. It's not something that gets noticed when I'm running around with it. So that's my solution. You do what you want to do, but I feel like that's a highly underrated and overlooked option for something like this. One more thing, if the last thing I forgot to mention was, some of you are wondering about the strap, obviously. So what I'm running is a Magpul. It's just a Magpul strap. This is their MS4 sling, and it's got the QD points on both sides. So you put one here, snaps in, and then you put one back here, snaps in, and you're good to go. And this one is convertible from 2-point to 1-point. So if you want to run it as a single point sling, you can, and it'll go either way. So again, it's fully ambidextrous. So if you need to convert one way or the other, you can run it however you want. Again, I normally run it as a 2-point, but I like having the option just in case something happens and I do decide I need to run it as a single point, I can. So that's it for the Daniel Defense DDM4V9. That's my setup. Let me know what you think. It's pretty bare bones. Oh, I did forget to mention the story of how I got it, didn't I? So when I was looking for Daniel Defense, this was about 10 years ago, so their prices were a little bit lower than they are now, but they still weren't cheap. These things were running for, I want to say, right around $1,700 or so, $1,600-$1,700, somewhere in that area. Well, I remember I was on the forums and somebody posted that Primary Arms, shout out to Primary Arms, Primary Arms was having a sale on Daniel Defense rifles, and it was like a ridiculously good sale. So I jumped on, checked it out, and sure enough, boy, it was a really good price. It was a price that was too good to pass up. So I ordered it on, I believe it was a Saturday. That Sunday, I went back to check, and I guess somebody must have made a mistake or something, or maybe it was a flash sale and it was just for the one day only, but the price had changed. It was still on sale, but not quite as much as what I was able to get it for. So when I went to my FFL and picked it up, he even asked me, he was like, man, how did you get a deal on this like you were able to? I can't even get it for that price. I was like, well, they were having a sale, we jumped on it, and I told him the story about how the price changed the very next day, and he said, yeah, somebody must have made a mistake on that. So let's just say I got it for a really good price. So yeah, good deal at a good price, couldn't pass it up. I'm very glad I had it. And again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but this was going to be my one rifle. So if I had one rifle that I had to rely on for doomsday scenario, this was going to be it. This is kind of how I set it up. Wanted to kind of keep it simple as much as possible and just put what I absolutely needed on it. So backup iron sights, a good red dot flashlight, and then some spare batteries for my electronics, and we're good to go. If you're wondering about the weight on this, according to my super scientific bathroom scale, this comes in as it is, as you see it here, it comes in right at 8 pounds. So I know that quad rail adds a little bit of weight to it. If you go with the V7 with the M-LOK rail, if that's something you prefer, that would probably knock the weight down just a little bit. And again, the stock is a little bit thicker, but it gives me the battery storage, which I feel is necessary for what this rifle is intended for. So at 8 pounds, it could be better, but it could be worse. I'm not lugging around 10 or 12 pound rifle. So with a full 16-inch barrel, government profile. You know, that's acceptable to me, and I know it's going to be there when I need it. Well, that's it for the Daniel Defense DDM4V9. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about this build. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay safe.